Mary Siobhan says, hey, coach, how do you trust God and know that he is capable of providing? Well, oftentimes we get upset with God's provision is because usually we're outside of his vision. Whoever holds the vision is responsible for the provision, right? And oftentimes when it comes to trusting God, God will bring you to the brink where there's nothing that you can do in your own strength so that he can prove or build in you faith in him, right? And so you have to understand that God's timing, number one, is perfect. Number two, I got to make sure that I'm perfectly placed in his will. And I got to make sure that I am managing or stewarding the things that's in my life. Provision without stewardship can become detrimental, right? And so you begin to trust God by knowing, number one, tracking his track record. Tracking his track record. The best way to have faith presently and to have faith in the future is to check God's track record. How has God been faithful to you previously? Write down all the things that you can think of in the next 5 or 10 minutes. Write down all the things that God has proven to be faithful in, right? And then you will begin to have trust going forward. Number two, you got to make sure that your trust don't rust. Usually our trust rusts when we have the wrong information or intel about God. That's why it's important for you to keep your trust developed by checking his track record. Number three, another way you can trust and better trust God is to understand God more. We talked about track God's track record, or make sure your rest don't trust. Number two, you got to make sure that you understand God more. You see what I'm saying? Understanding God is about getting to know him, not necessarily getting to know him based upon what you want from him, but to get to know him particularly. And I tell people, you cannot be able to have what's in God's hand until you want God's heart. Many people want God's hand, but they do not want God's heart. You can't have them separately. You got to have them, number one, initially, God's heart. Next, you got to store it. The better way to be entrusted even more, to be able to build trust, you got to be a good steward. You got to be a good steward. And the more you steward God's things, you'll begin to see God trusting you with more things. Therefore, you'll begin to have more track record to build trust in God. And last but not least, you got to understand that God's timing is perfect. God's timing is perfect. You got to trust that there are certain things in life that God is not going to provide for until you are actually the person for, right? We have to understand that God is not going to provide you anything until you become the person of that thing, the person that matched that thing. Now, I did in the previous video that the reason why God has us wait is so that we can develop the weight needed or lose the weight needed to match the thing that we're waiting on God for. What is that thing that you're trusting God for? What is that thing you're waiting on God for? Do you match it in weight? Will you be able to balance a marriage, balance parenting, balance that new position? Would you be able to balance it? And if you don't match it in weight, then you're not going to be able to receive it in the time that you're looking for. So number one, track God's track record. Make sure your trust don't rust. Develop your understanding in God. Stewardship, become a better steward. And trust that God's timing is perfect. And in the process, you will begin to see him supernaturally provide because God has provided. Hope that helped, my friend. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to engage more content, make sure you check out the videos over here. If you want to learn more about the books that I've written or the cards that I've created or ways that you can support and engage with what I do online, make sure you check out the links in the description box below. And if you've been watching this far, you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and subscribe, hit that bell, and make sure you leave a comment. I would love to read it and would love to engage and be your coach online. I'll see you on the next video.